Good morning. Rise and shine, my friends. Today is Wednesday, March 16th, and this is Wake Up with KERA News. I'm Katherine Hobbs. Thank you so much for starting your morning with me. Well, Zeus must have heard my plea for a little bit more springtime because today we're maxing out at 79 degrees. Some rain is expected, but that is nothing some frizz cream and an umbrella can't handle. Bonus points if you've also thrifted some light-up rain boots from the kids section. I grew up an absolutely fearless and honestly quite feral horse girl. I've always been small for my age, but no 17-hand horse, yes, that's really how big my horse was going to boss me around. I like to think I've carried that attitude into adulthood, and recently I've been dying to get back into riding after a few years off. I think today's sporting event might just give me that push I need. More on that in 2 shakes of a horse's tail, but first, let's get you the news you need to start your day. Dallas city officials are facing financial pressures that need to be remedied, including a $38 million budget deficit. Officials say they should have that shortfall figured out by mid-August. What are those expenses under consideration? Well, they include the severely underfunded Dallas police and fire pension systems, funding public safety meet and confer agreements, and adding funds to the non-sworn employee retirement fund. News out of the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals, they will not be reviewing the manslaughter conviction for former Fort Worth police officer Aaron Dean. He fatally shot Tatiana Jefferson through her bedroom window in 2019. Dean filed a petition for review in his case last month. That was after the state's Second Court of Appeals upheld the conviction earlier this year. He was convicted of the lesser charge of manslaughter in 2022 instead of his original charge of murder. Dean's attorney Bob Gill said jurors should only have been allowed to decide on murder, not manslaughter. The Texas Supreme Court is considering whether to take up a case that could have impacts on IVF in Texas. What began as a debt and divorce has grown into a larger battle over whether frozen embryos can be defined as a person. Eleanor Klibanoff covers women's health at the Texas Tribune. She broke down the case with the Texas Standard's Angela Kocherga.
Well, what is at the heart of this case? What are both sides arguing here?
So this case involves a divorce, as you said, and the couple successfully mediated everything else, and it all comes down to these 3 frozen embryos that they made while they were married. And they signed a contract when they created the embryos saying in case of divorce, the husband would get the embryos. Now, generally courts honor those contracts, but the ex-wife is now arguing that because of the Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization ruling, the overturn of Roe v. Wade, and the near total ban on abortion in Texas, that should be re-examined, and the embryos, instead of being treated as property, should be seen as people and handled like that.
Well, what factors go into the court's decision to take up this case or not?
So far, the trial court and the appeals court have both sort of stuck with the court precedent on this. They've said in the past, Texas and other states have honored these contracts that most fertility clinics have couples sign before they go through IVF for exactly this reason. The question is, does the Texas Supreme Court, which is all Republicans and one of the more conservative Supreme Courts in the country, want to sort of tackle this issue of when does life begin? Are they sort of going to take this opportunity to raise larger questions about fetal personhood and the abortion movement and all of these things that some people I talked to said they definitely want to grab onto, and others say, they maybe just want to shy completely away from based on what we saw in Alabama.
Well, is there a legal precedent that's relevant in this case?
There's this 2006 case called Roman v. Roman in Texas, and that is sort of where the court started saying the contract is the contract, and we're just going to go with what the contract says between this couple. This woman and her lawyer say that was the pre-Dobbs, the pre-overturn of Roe v. Wade legal structure, right, where embryos were property. And that was fine for then. Now, if we redefine, an unborn child, as the law says, to be, everything from the moment of fertilization, these embryos are children and should be handled, the way we handle custody between 2 people who are divorcing and the living children they have created.
Well, what could this case mean for the future of IVF in Texas?
The legal experts I spoke to and fertility doctors who have filed amicus briefs in this case say if this case is sort of taken to the sort of furthest degree, which is what this woman and her lawyers are asking for, it would upend access to IVF in Texas. It would raise questions about, if the law sees these embryos as children, you likely can't freeze them. You have to implant them immediately upon being fertilized. You have to maybe just, fertilize one at a time. So you can just implant one at a time, which is an unrealistic way of actually implementing IVF with the science and technology that we have right now. So it would, similar to what we saw in Alabama, potentially have sort of major upending consequences for IVF and require, as we saw in Alabama, the legislature to step in and start clarifying things pretty quickly.
That was Eleanor Klibanoff and Angela Kocherga. All my fellow horse girls unite, it's time for the 2024 Women's Rodeo World Championship. Now through May 18th, trot on down to Fort Worth and Arlington arenas to watch the best cowgirls in the world try to lasso in a $75,000 prize. Okay, y'all, so this isn't your typical climate change story, nor is it particularly sweet news. The majority of chocolate is made in just 2 regions, and they've been subjected to erratic weather from climate change that means cocoa production is dropping. Both drought and heavy rainfall are endangering the industry. For more on that, check out NPR's Shortwave podcast. It's Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month, and the city of Dallas is rolling out all kinds of ways to celebrate. At the top of my list is the Samurai Collection, located above St. Anne's Restaurant and Bar. I'm going to see if I can rally my Japanese dad to drive up from Austin to visit with me. Reservations are required, but viewing is free to the public each Saturday and Sunday. Thank you so much for starting your day with me. I'm so glad you take a few minutes to listen each morning. Be sure to subscribe to the Wake Up with KERA newsletter at KERAnews.org and check us out on Instagram and Threads at KERATF. I'm Katherine Hobbs. We'll chat again tomorrow.